We're live. We're back. Welcome back to another of Currency Cloud Superhero Spotlight Series. I'm delighted to be joined today by Jovi Overo, who is founder and CEO of BarteroPay. Jovi, good to see you again. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. Pleasure to be on. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, this isn't. There's some prep work that goes into these sessions, believe it or not. And when we spoke just over a week ago, I wrote down two things.
Yeah.
I wrote down living on a prayer and I wrote down matrix. And I had to remind myself what they meant. And it's living on a prayer. And it's because we started talking about your name. I was like, that's a cool name.
John Bon Jovi.
And you said your mum was a massive Bon Jovi fan.
Yeah.
And hence your name. And you must have much cooler parents than me because I'm clearly named after kind of Cliff Richard or something.
Not Cliff Richard. I love the guy.
And then the matrix. I started thinking, what did I write down the matrix for? And we're going to talk around kind of data. And I think the topic of today is kind of whose data is it anyway? And I thought that the backstory to Bartero was really, really interesting because you said it's like the matrix because everything begins and ends with choice. Yes. I thought that was great. So I jotted that down. But why don't you kind of give us an intro, to you, and your background, and then kind of the concept behind BarteroPay.
Okay, thank you. So I've been involved in fintech for the last 5 years, but prior to that, for 15 or so years, I've been involved in financial services and also startup, co-founded a trading company. Took a sabbatical to do an MBA, and that was where I fell in love with fintech. And that brought me to meet with my other co-founders and the concept of BarteroPay. And essentially what we are is a B2B and a B2C lifestyle app that enables consumers to interact, engage, and monetize their data whilst interacting with brands and companies that they love. Excuse me. And most will typically understand that data is being collected from us, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And this is spread across all the various platforms that we engage with. And this pervasive collection of data essentially means that every single adult in the UK and in America typically has a data profile that's been collected on them and is worth approximately £4,500 per year to companies. At BarteroPay, we believe that users should essentially be able to see the data that's held on them, be able to control how it is used and when it is sold, and ultimately, be able to get paid for that data. So those are basic ownership rights. But, as consumers, we get no compensation for our data. And what you find are companies essentially utilizing our data as a free cost of goods for their businesses, thereby lining their pockets to the tunes of billions of pounds of revenue per year. And God forbid that anything should trickle down to us mere mortals, but it seems that these big tech companies tend to eat alone. They don't even pass the salt. So really what we're trying to do is give consumers the ability, to interact and engage and take control of their data and decide, who do I want to engage with? What company do I want to share my data with? And that was how it was born. And you mentioned the matrix. And we've always said that everything should begin and end with choice. And with our data, we don't have that choice. We don't have the choice to say, okay, I can share my data with company X, or I want to share my data with company B, or I don't want to share my data. That's been taken away from us. And at BarteroPay, we intend to give consumers that choice.
So listen, I think it's fascinating. And I think it's fascinating for a couple of reasons. But I think people are aware there's probably a data problem.
Yes.
And I think, but it probably doesn't go deep enough to understand actually what that problem is. How much of my data is out there and where is it? And is it kind of a free for all for companies just to be able to access this data? I think the other thing that's really interesting is what you mentioned there, what £4,500 per year is actually how much my data might be worth, but I'm not seeing a penny of that. And I just wonder, and as you kind of tackle this issue, how do you view that? And is it more around kind of the kind of ethical issue of our data being out there for everybody to have? Or is it actually, this is fun? That's one issue, but it's fundamentally unfair that these people are capitalizing on this and I'm not.
Yes, it's a combination of both. So I gave the figure of £4,500 per year, but I think the bigger question is, are there companies out there that want to purchase your data? And the answer is a resounding no. So Rich, take you, for example, would you say that in 2020, all the data compiled on you, health records, political records, financial data, social media, would you say all that data is worth, at a ridiculously low level, £1 to a company to purchase?
Well, you might pick the wrong person here. I mean, me probably not, but
I mean, don't ruin my point here, Rich.
Yeah, you'd certainly hope so. Yeah,
yeah, you would.
I think it'd be actually a lot more than that, but
a lot more than that. Okay, but let's take £1 as a baseline. So in the UK, there are 6 million SMBs, small to medium businesses. In the US, there are 30 million companies out there who rely on data. Now, do you imagine that out of all those companies, there are 1,000 companies out there who will pay you £1 for your data? And if the answer is yes, then you're looking at £1,000 per year in your pocket. And that's essentially what BarteroPay is trying to do, trying to give the ability for you to obviously monetize your data, but also to give businesses who rely on this data access to ethical, and transparent data that's been given with the consent of the consumer. Your data is out there. You check your Gmail. Gmail has algorithms that know exactly who you open your emails to, the frequency of the emails, who you frequently contact, and they can start to build models and behaviors about you. And we believe that enough's enough. It's time for us as consumers to band together and say, look, we want to take control of our data.
So that's a really good point, and actually looking at it from that SME angle, because what you're saying there is there's obviously a huge advantage for these businesses because it's both ethically sourced, but correct, also hyper focused, correct? Because if I'm Absolutely. A consumer, I'm only opting in to the stuff that I really care about, correct, and I don't mind people using and then kind of advertising straight back to me.
Yes, and that dovetails with our research. Consumers want to share data with brands that they are interested in. All they want is simply a fair and transparent method to exchange their data, their time, for a fair compensation. And as a consumer, we are more likely to engage with brands that we like, okay? And that also increases the company's ability to convert me as a customer, but also as a brand advocate for their products. So for us, it's a far better match than simply going on Facebook, throwing an ad out there, okay, and that ad being spammed to whomever. People may want to engage with it, people may not want to engage with it. Invariably, it goes to consumers who would have bought your products anyway. Worst case, it goes to people who don't want your product. And even worst case, it goes to fake profiles. And with our platform, we have a KYC process to onboard consumers. So as a business that every consumer that's on the BarteroPay platform has gone through a KYC process. They are validated, they are real.
Fantastic. So maybe let's talk about that because, or let's talk about where you sit, because you're targeting obviously the consumer, and I think that the data angle is really, really interesting. I think it's obviously topical over what's happened over the last few years.
Yes.
But do you look at yourself almost like a marketplace? Because there's a clear benefit for the buyer as a consumer, but the seller as the kind of the business.
Absolutely, and that is how we would see ourselves, as the world's first data marketplace. Excuse me, and that's where we sit. When we first entered the market, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, are you a fintech bank? Are you comparing yourself to the Revolut, the Monzos, the Curve?" And even though there is a payment aspect to our proposition, that's not the space that we play in. We play in the ability for a user and a company or a brand to exchange data, time for compensation. And it could be monetary, it could be rewards, it could be products, it could be it can be anything that the business wants to advertise or wants to push to the consumer. But yes, you're right. We are a marketplace, for a consumer and the business, and that interaction between the two.
And then you're saying then that the payment side, or the pay part of BarteroPay, is, I guess, just ease of use. Once you're in the system, what to do with the money that you've earned from being
exactly. So we are giving consumers the added benefit of being able to have a bank account and a debit card, and also be able to remit funds. So when a company enters the BarteroPay platform, and let's say they engage in a mission or a task, and we have identified the users who want to participate and share data, That exchange is facilitated via BarteroPay into obviously our accounts, and then we push through the payments into the relevant accounts for the consumer. So that's the pay aspects of it. It's a small piece of the bigger pie.
Correct. This is super interesting. And I think the concept is really interesting. I think it will really hit home with a number of people who, that on both sides of that marketplace. Actually, I think I hadn't thought about an SMB. There's two benefits. One, that hyper focused kind of audience, but also they can kind of tick the box in terms of this is an ethically sourced audience as well, because they've opted in, they've been KYC'd by our partners in this, in Bartero. I think that's really interesting. So how's it going? I mean, how long have you been around? What's kind of the rollout look like?
It's been topsy-turvy, ebb and flows, peaks and troughs. It's been a whirlwind of emotions with myself and also the three of the co-founders, Ciprian and Vlad. It's going well. So at the moment, we're simply building out our product. Okay, we're looking for a Q3, Q4 launch of this year. We are in the process of onboarding consumers. We are in the process of onboarding businesses. And what we found with businesses, the use case for them at this very early stage is simply a gauge of user sentiment. So we expect to, at the very minimum, post-launch, have 50,000 users on the platform. But let's just say, we don't know what we're doing. And as a worst case, we get 1,000 consumers on the platform. For a business to gauge accurately, the sentiment of 1 million consumers, all they really need is information and answers from a population of 1,066. And with that 1,000 consumers, they can get, with a 95% confidence level, the accuracy of answers to 1 million consumers. So we are in the process at the moment of onboarding consumers. We're in the process of onboarding businesses. We are going to be launching very aggressively our marketing campaign, both in the UK and Europe, and also in North America. So we are looking to make an impact. Okay, we're not going to try and take it in a phased approach. We're going to be bold. We're going to be aggressive, and we're going to go out there and wow the world with our product.
Well, I mean, you're now, I guess, a seasoned entrepreneur, right? So this isn't your first attempt at this. So you've probably got some battle scars of maybe tiptoeing and actually that go-to-market stretch. So what does that look like? You said you've got, a lot of people might say, let's just focus on a narrow geography of the UK, but you've got UK, Europe, US. Do you see different challenges across those locations, or is it all fundamentally kind of everybody's got a data challenge, whether you sit in, the US, Europe, or the UK?
Absolutely, everybody's got that data challenge. Everybody recognizes the need, to have ownership of their data. People want trust, they want ownership, and they want transparency. For businesses, they want the ability to target, with precision, the right customers, for their products. And that could be in the UK, that could be in Europe, that could be in US. The problems are the same, and that's why we feel we have a solution that's agnostic to the geography. And
then in terms of that rollout, and we've got a couple of minutes left, so we've got time to ask the question. In terms of rollout, I think, are you going after the consumer first, or is it kind of a two-pronged attack to say, listen, we're looking at targeting 50,000 consumers, but what does the kind of the sell side, the SMB side look like? Are you targeting them actively as well?
Two-pronged attack. Like I said, we are not taking a cautious approach. We're going to be bold, we're going to be aggressive, and we think we can combat and attack both fronts. I'm a great lover and fanboy of Elon Musk. And one of his favorite quotes is that failure must always be considered an option. Otherwise, you take choices that are too conservative. And with that mindset, that is why we are approaching our strategy, our go-to-market strategy, in such a very bold, and people may say perhaps, a too bold and aggressive way. But we think that when you've got product market fit, why not go out there and push it into the market?
And I think and we look at some of these challenges, and the reason I think I asked that kind of geographic launch question was because some products or businesses, it'll be a very different product market fit in the UK as it is the US and is in Europe. But I think if it comes back to that centralized data issue, everything begins and ends with a choice. Then it doesn't matter whether you're sat West Coast US or deepest, darkest Spain. It's incredible. Listen, I think it's really, really interesting what you're doing. And I like businesses, and like all our customers, obviously, but where our customers have a real sense of purpose and are challenging something that really needs to be broken, and I guess hasn't yet had a solution. This is probably, there aren't many companies doing what you're doing, right?
There are not many, and the approaches that the few are taking, we feel again aren't holistic, and that is why we are taking this aggressive approach. And partnering with the Currency Cloud, partnering with Qantas, partnering with Visa. We think these are big names to give us the credibility, so that when we do go to market, people say, okay, we've got this respectable brands with them. Okay, let's sign up and let's start to capitalize on the fact that, look, it's our data. And we want to monetize it. And for businesses, bear in mind, it's an £80 billion a year mobile digital advertising space. And what they want is to get good ROI on their marketing dollar. And with our platform, they're able to do that precisely. And that's why we think we will be a success.
Fantastic. Well, listen, really looking forward to the launch. Really looking forward to seeing how this pans out over the coming years. Where can people find out more about kind of BarteroPay and the journey you're on?
Yeah, see, we were typically operating on stealth mode, but I think obviously this interview has let the cat out of the bag. So they can check us out on our social media channels, BarteroPay.com on the website. We're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn. But I would expect, for consumers who really want to know more about us to email me. Contact details are on the website.
Fantastic. Jovi, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
And really looking forward to seeing how this pans out.
Superb. Thank you so much.